Hey everybody, Mr. Moppin coming at you once again. We're still taking a look at AP Government's Topic 2.4, looking at the roles and powers of the president. Last time we were looking at some of the informal powers of the president, things that you will not find enumerated in the Constitution, but exist nonetheless, and kind of add to this growing power that presidents have been kind of adding on in recent decades. We talked previously about things such as the president serving as the head of state and the president exercising executive privilege power. This time, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a couple of other aspects of informal powers, and one of those is the informal power of persuasion. To be an effective president, you have got to be able to persuade not just members of Congress to go along with your policy agendas, but also the American public to go along with your policy agendas. Remember, you are an elected official as a president. You need popular support. And the representatives of the people in Congress, you need their support to enact your policies. So to be the best, the most successful president you can be, you've got to be good at persuasion. The question then becomes, how do you do it? Well, we've seen going all the way back to the Roosevelts. We saw, for example, Teddy Roosevelt use what he called the bully pulpit to try to, give a lot of public speeches, to use the newspapers to promote what he was trying to achieve, be it, an expanded Navy or, creating the Panama Canal or, regulating trusts or whatever. In the case of Franklin Roosevelt during the Great Depression, Roosevelt comes up with these numerous New Deal policies, and he uses fireside chat radio addresses. He uses government-funded films to kind of showcase the success of New Deal programs after they've been put into effect. We see, for example, Ronald Reagan as a former actor be able to have a smooth communication ability. Bill Clinton was also renowned for that as well. But there are some other examples that have proven to be quite powerful as well that don't necessarily fit into the ability to publicly speak well as a means to be persuadable, especially with regards to close relationships. In other words, personal communications with maybe members of Congress or world leaders or people like that. Not on the public stage and so much as, kind of on a one-on-one basis. And probably the president that was most effective at the behind-the-scenes power of persuasion, particularly with members of Congress, to get the policies done that he wanted, was Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson was a longtime member of Congress. In fact, he was Senate Majority Leader for many years before he became Vice President and then ultimately President. He knew how the levers of power worked, and he was not afraid to exploit those for his policy goals. And one of the ways that he did that was to use what political scientists today have described as the Johnson treatment. Now, one of the things you got to know about Lyndon Johnson is that he was a big 6'3", over 200-pound Texan that was not afraid to use that size, to use that power physically to his advantage when trying to negotiate things getting done that he wanted done. For example, Johnson was not afraid to use that height to literally tower over people. He was not afraid to get in people's personal space. When you get in somebody's personal space, you are showing authority. You are showing dominance. And if you have that sense of dominance informally, you're going to be able to be more persuadable to people that you want to see things your way. This person, is laughing, but maybe laughing out of a sense of anxiety or fear. Here's another famous example of Lyndon Johnson. Now, this actually goes back to his days as a Senate Majority Leader, but still, though, the idea of in your personal space, using height, using weight, using your presence to try to get people off guard, try to get people out of their comfort zone, to have them kind of be on the defensive in terms of having to listen to what you are trying to say, trying to exert some type of pressure / maybe intimidation a little bit to get your policy goals done. And, this Johnson treatment, in conjunction with many other things, is going to allow Johnson to be one of the most effective presidents in terms of policy generation that we've ever seen. This is the president. Now, I'm not saying you have to agree with the policies, but you have to respect the ability of Johnson to be able to get a number of very well-known, very significant policies crafted in about 4 years, really. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, Medicare, Medicaid, you name it. I mean, there is a flurry, a slew of programs. The Immigration and Naturalization Act of 65, the Secondary Education. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. And Johnson was able to get it done, not just with the ability to deliver public speeches, which he was probably mediocre at best as a public speaker on the grand stage, but also using that power of persuasion behind the scenes to get things done that he needed done. Now, it's not just Johnson that has his own style to try to, on a one-on-one basis, try to exert some authority. Former President Trump was also somebody that proved to be pretty interesting with that. His version of the Johnson treatment, or if you would call it maybe the Trump treatment, I don't know, was his use of handshakes. Let me show you this quick video here as I try to move my face. Let me show you this quick video right here from the Washington Post that shows the president using the handshake as a way to kind of exert a sense of not just closeness but dominance. As you'll see here, now there's some exceptions they show here in the video, but Trump uses a extremely firm handshake to not just grab somebody's hand, but to try to pull them in. As you can see here, trying to pull in President Macron. Another common thing that Trump does with a handshake is to shake with one hand and put the other hand on top, once again kind of exerting a sense of dominance. Trump also would use that handshake to try to pull people in, as you can see there with Vice President Pence kind of yanking him in to kind of show, you see that right there, kind of showing, his authority here with, Justice Gorsuch when he was appointed. This was, another example here of meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan. So, that's another style. Now, in the case of Trump, how effective was it? I don't know. It was sometimes mocked, but that was his style. That was his style to try to exert some sort of persuasion on a one-on-one basis. And note, Trump was a pretty effective public speaker, no question about that. That's also helped with his abilities to try to get things done in terms of policy. So that's the power of persuasion. We're going to round out this video and round out this section of notes by taking a look at another area of informal powers, and those are executive orders. Executive orders deal with the president's constitutional right and authority to enforce laws. When laws are passed, they then go from Congress to the executive branch. And the president, as the chief executive officer, is then responsible for enforcing the law. The question, though, is how does a president enforce that law? Laws, at the end of the day, even though some of them might be very long, actually are generally pretty vague in terms of exact specifics on how laws are to be enforced. And where there are gray areas, presidents, especially in recent decades, have taken advantage of that and have used gray areas in laws to exert what they want to do in terms of the policy. And that's what an executive order is. An executive order is a specific written enforcement policy for a particular law. And that enforcement policy has the force of law. Think of an executive order when it is written as almost an addendum to that law. That's how significant that is. And presidents use this broad or fairly broad executive order authority to do a lot of things. And we've seen them done famously and infamously in American history. For example, some of you may be familiar with Executive Order 9066, created by FDR, that allowed for the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. We saw, on a much more positive note, Truman using an executive order to desegregate the entire federal bureaucracy, including the U.S. military. Reagan, in 1981, will use an executive order to terminate air traffic controllers that were on strike. In much more recent years, President Barack Obama used an executive order to change the deportation policy for Dreamers. Dreamers being people that came over as young children as illegal aliens or undocumented workers, whatever you want to consider that. And basically changed the policy to basically put Dreamers at the bottom of the deportation list. Since there are so many folks that are here illegally as immigrants, if you're at the very bottom of that list of literally millions of people, the chances of you actually getting formally deported is pretty low. And then, of course, Trump is going to use an executive order to undo a previous executive order. The thing about executive orders is that they technically only last, kind of like an executive agreement, they technically only last for the length of a presidential term. And so whenever a new president comes in, they can either continue past executive orders or undo them. When you are going from Democrat to Republican to Democrat, you're going to see some flip-flopping on that for sure. And one of the lasting important questions of the growth of executive orders is, will these become even more common, given the fact that gridlock is kind of the environment that we see in Congress? As Congress has less and less ability to come to consensus, to get laws created, I think you probably will see more executive orders be done, because it doesn't require Congress to do anything for an executive order to be done to add to something that already is law. So, as my computer is running out of power, we're going to end this video right here. Okay, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.